Hello, my friends, and it is so good to see you again. If you don't know me, my name is Keith, and I run a website called IELTS Speaking Success, helping you. I hope I can help you get better English, better answers, and get that high score on IELTS speaking. Today, we're going to be looking at the new questions from January to April 2020 for part 2. Let's check them out. So guys, let's have a look at these part 2 questions. We'll be looking at the task card or the cue card from all of the new questions. This is not a complete list. There are other questions because of course some of the older questions are recycled, but I'll be focusing on the new ones that can be quite challenging. So today I hope to give you some ideas, some language idioms to help you build up your confidence for this. There may be 1 or 2 model answers, but if you really want lots of model answers, you're best off checking out my course on Udemy, IELTS Speaking Success, Get a Band 7. There's a link below. Now, part 2. I categorize part 2 into 5 things, right? There's people, places, things, activities and events. Most of the questions come into one of those categories. So today I'll look at people and places. I may have to do this in 2 videos and do the others next time because it might be quite long. So get a cup of tea or coffee if tea's not your cup of tea and settle down. Let's get ready for the ride. Okay, first of all, people. So before we look at the cue card, I think there are 2 or 3 things we can always talk about with people. No matter what the cue card, you can talk about their appearance, personality, and what they do or what you do together. So with those 3 things, you can use the same language again and again, right? When describing people, I guess people have 2 directions. You're either up or down, or you're that way or this way, right? So describing people can be tall. But rather than saying, well, he's tall or she's tall, use some adverbs, right? He's quite tall. He's fairly tall. She's taller than me. So that you're describing them, but you're giving richer language. Now, somebody's tall, but they may be short. Now, you don't want to say he's short because it's not very polite. So, of course, in English, we're quite diplomatic and have euphemisms. And we might say, he's not as tall as me. He's not as tall as me. Isn't that great? It also shows off your comparisons. Nice bit of grammar. She's not as tall as me. And notice the linking, not as tall as, not as tall as me. Think of the sounds, not as tall as me. She's not as tall as me. Sometimes for women, we also say petite. She's quite petite. We've stolen the word from our French friends. Petite is a French word, but we use it in English. So she's quite petite. Now, you're up or you're down, but you may be this way. So some people may say, well, he's fat. I'm afraid it's not very polite or very good to say fat. And it's not very rich vocabulary. So instead of saying he's fat, you could say, well, he's a bit chubby, which is a little fat, right? He's a bit chubby, a bit plump, or she's slightly overweight. She's slightly overweight. Of course, if somebody really is fat, you may say he's obese. And of course, obesity, it's a growing problem, right? More and more obese people around the world. It's because we're eating cakes in IELTS Part 1. That's the problem. So, overweight. Now, if you're not that way, you're this way, you're thin. Oh, he's thin. Now, I'm quite thin, and I hate it when people say, oh, you're a bit thin, you're thin, because it means, really, you're too thin. So another way of saying it is to say he's lean. If you're a man, he's lean. If you're a woman, she's slender. She's slender. It makes it sound attractive. She's slender. He's lean means he's quite thin but strong, right? Maybe a bit muscly. So it also sounds attractive. I'm lean. I'm not thin, I'm lean. So these are nice words you can use to describe people. Next up, personality, right? Okay. So again, personality, there are two ways it can go. You can be somebody who's outgoing or somebody who's inward looking. So we may say, well, he's what? He's outgoing, right? He's an outgoing person, or she's an outgoing person. She's gregarious. That's a lovely word. She's gregarious. Stress on the air, gregarious. Meaning that really she's sociable. She's very sociable. She likes to talk and chat to people. Okay, sociable is difficult because it's a s and a sh. Sociable. She's quite sociable, or she's very sociable. Remember your adverbs. Quite, fairly, pretty. She's pretty sociable. I'm fairly gregarious. Okay. As a noun, you can say, well, she's an extrovert. Okay. Okay. Now, you're outward going or you're inward looking, so you can be shy. Maybe she's shy. She's timid. She's an introvert as the noun, so opposite of extrovert. He's an introvert. You may say she's very much an introvert. Again, nice natural English, right? Not she's an introvert. She's very much an introvert. And you have to nod your head when you say it, right? In the exam. She's very much an introvert. I don't know why, but it looks good. She's very much an introvert. Or a nice expression is she likes to keep herself to herself. You know, she likes her own time, basically. Or she likes her own company. She likes to keep herself to herself. I like to keep myself to myself sometimes. This is where I have a problem with shyness, because I don't think shyness is a characteristic. I think it's something that we do sometimes. And depending on the context, right? In some situations, I can be very shy. I can be quite an introvert. You know, at home, I like to sit down. I enjoy keeping myself to myself and reading a book. But other days, I can be much more gregarious. So it's quite changeable, I think. Anyway, that's just what I think. Now then, so we've talked about appearance, personality, and also you talk about what they do or what you do. That may depend more on the question. So let's get into the questions. Our first cue card is: describe the person you spend the most time with. You should say who this person is, what kind of person he or she is, what you usually do together, and explain why you spend the most time with this person. Now, when you think about it, the people or the person you spend most time with, it may be family. So it might be your wife, partner, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, or parents, or somebody in the family, because we do spend a lot of time at home. On the other hand, we also spend a lot of time, often too much time, at work. So maybe you actually spend more time with your colleagues or your boss. Oh my God. Imagine if we spend more time with our boss than with our wife or husband. What a terrible thought. But sometimes it's true, right? So it may be colleagues. It could be friends. If you're a very sociable or gregarious person, maybe you spend a lot of time with your friends. So that would be one that you could pick out with. Me personally, I think I spend the most amount of time with my daughter, because I work at home. I work from an office here, and so I don't have a big team of people I interact with. And I try to, well, in the mornings I get up, I make breakfast, I spend time with my daughter. Then when she comes home from school, then also I spend more time with her. We'll sit on the sofa, watch a bit of TV, always have an afternoon snack, kick back, relax, chew the cud, have a chat, talk about her day. My daughter, right? She's quite a petite girl, although she's growing very quickly. Obviously she's not as tall as me, but she has this long brown hair, and she's very calm and collected. At times, she takes after her father, me. She's a bit shy, but at other times with her friends, she's incredibly gregarious. So that's a girl. That's a person I spend most of my time with. Okay, let's move on. And another thing to add, as well as personality, can be whether people get angry, right? Because some people do get angry very quickly. They have a quick temper. My boss has a quick temper. Well, my ex-boss had a quick temper. Well, has, because they still do have a quick temper. He was always flying off the handle. Fly off the handle is a great expression. We're not sure. I was speaking to some students the other day. Why do we say handle? Because handle, right, is that thing there. Boom, boom, boom. The handle on the door. One student suggested it might be the handle of the kettle, because it's so hot, the old kettles, that you fly off the handle. Anyway, it means to get angry. Some people are the opposite. They're very calm and collected. And I love that. That's one of these binomials where you have noun and noun. Calm and collected, neat and tidy, first and foremost, fish and chips. Great binomials. The and becomes an, calm and collected. So she's calm and collected. I'm usually quite calm and collected. Notice, right? I'm usually quite calm and collected. It's very natural to put in an adverb. Enough of this banter. Describe a person who taught you something important. You should say who this person is, how you know this person, what this person taught you, and explain why you thought this was important. So I think here, typically, and if I keep looking here, it's because I've got a monitor. People who teach us, of course, the first thing that pops into my mind is a teacher from school or university. I had some great teachers at university who taught me, well, my whole career around education and digital education. So teachers are good. Maybe a coach, because nowadays in a lot of out of school activities, or what we call extracurricular activities, a lot of those have coaches. So maybe you have a music coach or a music tutor, a football coach, a rugby coach, a running coach, who teach you things that can be important. Again, one of the most popular ones that I hear is parents, because parents teach us, I guess, not things, but they teach us values, principles, the way to behave. They teach us responsibility, honesty, sharing, all of those things which are intangible. So that, I think, is a good one for parents. Who else? Well, brother or sister, right? So we also need to think about what was the important thing they taught us. So it could be knowledge, like school. It could be skill. And that, for example, could also be how to ride a bike. My brother taught me how to ride a bike. How to cook. My mother taught me how to cook. How to swim. How to drive a car. How to, all sorts of things. How to read. So there's lots of things here you can talk about, and different people who've taught you those things. And again, when you're describing the person, talk about their appearance, their personality. Probably here you focus quite a lot on the thing they taught you, and so why they were good at that, why it was important for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next cue card or task card. Describe a person who is good at his or her job. You should say who this person is, how you know them, what this person does, and explain why this person is good at his or her job. Right, people who are good at their job. So you may have, bosses that you've had, if you're a working person, who are good at their job. Gosh, unfortunately, I've had lots of bosses who are bad at their job. There were very few who were good at it. And I actually learned a lot about what not to do. But sometimes you come across a really good boss. So maybe you talk about that person. What makes them good? Maybe because they're efficient or productive, or they just get things done. So they're very, some people can be very results oriented, and they're really good at getting the work done and reaching the results, reaching the targets they need to get. Maybe they're just a very good leader and they can create a really nice, engaging atmosphere, motivate people and inspire people. Good bosses, or somebody who's good at his job, also probably might be a good people person. So they make you feel that they care about you, and they're good at engaging and building a rapport with other people. That means kind of building your relationship. So they're good at building a rapport. That said, right, someone good at his job doesn't have to be a boss, right? It could be anybody in the company, in the workplace. It could be the street cleaner, the gardener, anybody who's actually good at what they do. So you could talk about a colleague. Maybe they're an IT expert, and because they're an expert, they're good at what they do. You could talk about a teacher. You could talk about a president. You could talk about a public person, right? I mean, if you really feel your president is doing a good job, great, you could talk about that. Boris? Maybe not Boris Johnson. Depends, but I don't think. Have to think about that one. Whatever you choose, right? You remember, talking about people, you can talk about their appearance. Are they tall or short? Not tall or short. They're taller than me. Or maybe they're, lean. You can talk about their personality and, of course, the way that they work, what they do, and why they are good at what they do. Great. That is a person who's good at his or her job. Let's look at the next task card. Describe a person in the news that you would like to meet. You should say who this person is, how you know about this person, why you want to meet them, and explain how you feel about this person. Of course, remember, in part 2, these bullet points, right, are a guide. You don't have to follow them. I think they're actually very useful and they give you a nice structure, but you don't have to. If you just want to talk about a person in the news, their appearance, their personality, why you want to meet them, that's fine. You just talk about what you want. Just make sure you answer the top question. It's a person in the news you would like to meet. So not somebody you have already met, but you would like to meet in the future. Okay. So here, I was thinking there are 2 possible scenarios or situations here. One is people are in the news either because they're famous either because they're famous or because they're not famous, but they're still in the news. So famous people get in the news. Famous people like presidents, celebrities, business people, pop stars, they get in the news for good and bad reasons, right? They do good things or bad things, but because they're famous, they're in the news. But you don't have to talk about famous people, because there are lots of normal people like you and me who get in the news, sometimes for good reasons. Maybe they have done some charity work, they've helped out other people, they saved a cat up the tree. Who knows? But they get in the news for those kind of reasons. Okay, maybe it was a scientist who made a discovery. It's not a famous person, but he's in the news. Okay, so what I did here and what I recommend you do is just this: is get onto. I've got my monitor. Get onto a news site. Here we go. BBC News. And let's see who is in the news and someone you would like to meet. Okay, Donald Trump, impeachment. That's a great one. I'd love to meet Donald Trump and ask him what on earth he is doing. What is he thinking? There's all sorts of things. Now, here's a story, right? Painting found is a stolen Klimt. Is a famous painting has been found. Let's see what happened here. So the portrait of the lady was found. Now that's interesting. And as you go through the story, it says here, it was stolen. And there was an art student, Claudia Marga, revealed it had been painted over another Klimt painting. So this art student, right, is in the news and she's talking about the painting. She's not famous, but I'd like to meet her. I'd like to ask her about painting, about how she feels about this famous painting being found. That'd be really interesting. And if I've studied the vocabulary of painting and art, this would be a very nice topic to talk about here. I can talk about this woman who was in the news. So you'll find most stories, right? I mean, there's all sorts here. What else have we got? China anger after woman drives into forbidden city. You're not allowed to drive into the forbidden city. I'd love to meet that woman and ask her, what were you thinking? And most stories, right, they start with an individual. Joe Bloggs in Australia was trying to save his house. And these people are in the news. It would be great to speak to them. So get on the news website, find an interesting story, and you can talk about that. And if you can choose something that is a theme or a topic that you also know about, maybe it's art or economics or anything, then that would be a good one to do. So there, you can talk about a person in the news, could be famous, doesn't have to be. Okay, that's great. So we've talked quite a bit about people. Let's move on and talk about places. Okay, so when it comes to places, I think there are three things you can talk about. Of course I do. So of course you can talk about where it is, the location. Talk about the appearance, so especially if it's a building or a park or a church or whatever the place is. There was a topic about a school, right? Talk about the appearance and then what you can do there or what you do there. So when we talk about where, many students say it is located in and then give the place. It's located in London. Now that's fine, okay, but it's much more natural, actually, to say it's in London, or it's in the north of London, it's in the north of England, it's in the south of England. It's much more natural to say that. And then you can talk about the position. So if it's a building, maybe it's in the centre of town, or it's slap bang in the centre. It's slap bang in the middle of the city. Slap is slap bang, boom. It's slap bang in the city centre. It just means it's right in the city centre. It's slap bang in the middle of the city. Or maybe this building is not slap bang in the middle. Maybe it's hidden away in a quiet area. This building is hidden away in the back streets of the city. It's hidden away in the outskirts. Okay? Notice hidden away. we link with most phrasal verbs. There is a connection. Hidden away, no way, hidden away. It's hidden away in the back streets of the city. You could also say the outskirts, right? It's on the outskirts of the city. The outskirts, it's not skirt that you wear, it's just out around the city. It's the area around the city, the outskirts. Stress on the out. It's in the outskirts of the city. So, things you could say about where it is. You could also talk about, of course, the appearance of a building. When you talk about the appearance, there's a lot of things actually. In fact, I've done a whole video in my Udemy course about buildings and appearances, and it goes into all the detail about architecture, about location, and about the features. But here, let me just say, briefly, focus on the design. So, is it made out of brick? Is it a wooden building or a concrete building? So if it's a brick building, then those bricks are the red little stones that you see, especially in the old buildings in England. Those houses have bricks. It's a brick building. Or maybe it's a concrete building. So that's that grey, flat, boring substance that they built a lot of houses out of in the 1960s or 70s in many European countries. So it's a concrete building. Or maybe it's a wooden building. In America, for example, they have a lot of wooden buildings, wooden houses. So maybe it's a wooden building. So design, or what it's the appearance, and talk also about the features. So what does it have, right? Well, I know it has windows and a door, but I mean, you could say, very simple, it has all the mod cons. Especially with buildings and houses, it has all the mod cons. Mod means modern, cons means conveniences. So the modern conveniences are things like air conditioning, maybe heating, water, electricity, obviously television, the usual conveniences you might expect in a nice house. We call that the mod cons. It has all the mod cons. So, design, features are really good things to talk about. Oh, and the third thing you can talk about, design or appearance, features, and also what you can do there. So typically we say, well, you can, if you're describing your ideal house, you can sit on the sofa, you can sit on the balcony. Notice can becomes can. You can sit. Because we stress the next word, we very rarely stress can. It becomes can. You can sit. Do you hear that? You can sit. You can relax. You can sit on the balcony. Or you can say, it's a great place to do. And again, the to, actually, we very rarely say to. We say to, because we stress the next word. It's a great place to relax. To relax. It's not to relax, it's to relax. You can hear the stress on the lax. To relax. Try. To relax. It's a great place to relax. It's a great place to chill out. So, you can talk about what you can do there in that building. Let's have a look at our first cue card or task card. I never heard the word cue card before. In all my time examining, we've always talked about a task card. It was only when I met some Indian students who asked for the cue card. And I said, what's a cue card? And they said, the cue card. And because we don't call it that, we called it the task card. But now I know what it is. So let's begin. Right, crowded places. Now, when I was thinking of crowded places, I thought immediately of the places that I don't like because crowds can make me a bit nervous. One of them is the shopping mall. Oh my God, the shopping mall. Saturday afternoon, you're dragged there by your wife or your partner and you have to walk around the shops. You don't have to, but you want to be a good husband, right? The shopping mall, and they're crowded. It's like teeming with people. The shops are just packed, and you're like sardines all crushed up in the shops, knocking each other over. Ugh. Anyway, shopping malls, those are crowded places you could talk about. Hey, also conferences. If you're an academic or a working or a student, maybe you've been to a conference, and I've noticed conferences can be quite busy places. Concerts, music concerts, rock concerts, those are crowded places, right? Football matches, if you're a football fan, up the Reds, then those football stadiums are always packed with people. They're teeming with people. So football matches can be a good place. Also, somebody mentioned this the other day, getting the bus. Right, especially in the rush hour, getting the bus in the rush hour is packed. You're all crammed into the bus together. So those are crowded places. And other ones could be tourist sites. A lot of tourist sites in the summer, peak season, the busy time, lots of people there. If you've ever been to the Louvre to try and see the Mona Lisa, forget it. Take a telescope or binoculars because it's so crowded. It's such a popular tourist site, and like the key highlight is this painting. Yeah, you're not going to see it. So crowded places. What about the language? Let me have a look. I think I've said some there, right? We say, so if you go to maybe a shopping mall, it's packed with people. Packed. Just make sure you get the packed. That's a really hard sound, right? In English, packed. It was packed with people. Or it was teeming with people. Just teeming means a lot of people. The shopping mall was teeming with people. The bus in the rush hour was heaving with people. It's the same meaning, right? It's almost heave. What does that mean, Keith? I'm not sure. It just means a lot of people. It was heaving with people. We were squashed in the bus. So squashed like an orange squash is crushed. We were crushed. You could say it was a bit tight. Now, a bit tight maybe not in the bus because that's less than squashed. But I remember once I went to a conference. And at the conference, it was an educational conference. And as you came to the building, it was a beautiful building. It was actually a brick building. We walked inside and you could see there was a lot of people coming in. And when we went into the main plenary where they had the main talk, I just sensed that more and more people were heaving into the area, right? And we were actually there was too many people. It was so overcrowded. It was just too tight. It was too cramped. We were all squashed together on our little seats like that, listening to the speaker. So it was just not a bit tight. It was too tight and too cramped. We were squashed together like sardines. I think that's an expression in English. Packed like sardines. Because sardines are packed in the can. It's a bit of a cliche expression. I would just say we were packed or we were squashed together. So, lots of things you can say, right, about crowded places. Let's have a look at the next cue card. Describe a place you remember well that was full of colours. You should say where it was, what it was like, why you went there, and explain why you remember it well. Right then, colours. Okay, come on then. Remember a place full of colours. A theatre or a palace? Hey, Buckingham Palace or any palace. There's often a lot of colour inside. There's often a red carpet for the Queen to walk along and say hello. You've got the red carpets, the blue curtains, the yellow sofa. Yellow's quite a royal colour as well, right? So maybe palaces, right, are colourful places. Museums and art galleries. Think about it. The art gallery, you've got all these paintings on the walls, and there's blue brush strokes, there's grey, that's not a good colour, a better example, Keith, red, there's red brush strokes, there's a nice bit of yellow, bright pink over there, all these colours in the art gallery. That would be good to talk about, wouldn't it? Also, there's some temples, indeed churches or synagogues or mosques, whatever your religion. Quite a lot of these religious places have colour, and they're colourful, right? Bright colours. So that could be a place to talk about. Just being a bit creative. Some people call it stupid, but maybe creative. In England, we have gardens, and in the garden, people have a washing line, and you hang out your trousers, your socks, your underpants. You didn't need to know that. Towel. And in the washing line, right, there's all these colours. There's the blue jeans, the red socks, the yellow underpants. You've got gardens, washing line in the garden. No. Maybe that is a stupid idea. Well, they say creativity and stupidity are very, very close brothers, right? The other one, on that creative stream of thought, restaurants, right? A lot of restaurants have nice colours. Not only the decor, so all of the decoration, the tablecloth, the napkin, the nice paintings or the frieze on the wall, those are not the only colourful things, because the healthy restaurants now have something called eating the rainbow. Have you heard of that? Eating the rainbow. So where you eat different colours, because the healthy food, your fruit, your vegetables, they're green, red tomatoes, all the colours. So if you eat the rainbow, if you're eating all these colours, it's healthy. If, on the other hand, you eat McDonald's, it's all yellow. Everything's yellow or a bit of brown. It's just a boring, horrible colour. Eat the rainbow. It's good for you. And it's good for your IELTS speaking as well. Food, health, eat the rainbow. Talk about that wherever you can. Talk about eating the rainbow. A colourful place. I went into this restaurant. It was a health restaurant. They had a myriad of salads with lettuces and tomatoes where you could eat the rainbow. And it was a really colourful place. Move on to colours, actually. I say move on. Just move on a little bit, like over here. Just move over here. Talk about colours. So you can say colourful, right? That's the adjective. Not colourful. Get the stress right. Colourful. Colour. Colourful. It's a colourful restaurant, okay? You can say, as I said, a myriad of colours or a range of colours. If you're really fancy, you say a plethora of colours. A plethora, and you have to do that with your hand. A plethora of colours. A myriad of colours is nice. The most common, I think, is a range of colours. There was a range of colours. It's an interesting range. We talk about a range of mountains, a range of colours. So a whole spectrum of different colours. The kind of colours might be bright or dark. Bright colours, like the pinks, the reds, the yellow, we often say brash. If they're a bit too bright, that was a brash colour. That restaurant, and it really had some brash blues and reds on the wall. They were a bit too brash, too strong. And of darker colours, you can have different shades of blue, right? There were many different shades of red, different shades of, oh yes, I know where you're going, different shades of grey. Very famous book stroke film. But yes, you can talk about different shades of blue as well. Great. That's enough about colours. Let's go to the next one. Okay, the last one that this is new, and I can't leave without talking about this one because it's a real challenge. Describe a historical building you have visited. You should say where it is, what it looks like, why you went there, and explain how you felt about this historical building. So, historical buildings. Well, a lot of government buildings are historical, right? So you could talk about the town hall. In Spanish, it's the ayuntamiento, or the where the government office is, the main government office. Those are often historical buildings because the government keeps the best buildings to themselves. Sometimes schools and universities, hey, Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh, some of these universities, and I'm sure in your own country, are historical buildings, right? They may go back a long time. So you could talk about those kind of buildings. Theatres, I've written down here. I've got two places I write my notes, here and here. Theatres sometimes are historical. And museums, if they've been around a long time, they might be historical. Of course, castles. Castles up in Scotland, we've got a lot throughout Europe. Lots of cities have castles. In many countries, again, your temple, church, mosque, synagogue, just in case you're not sure. So temple, well, could be many things, right? Temple, for example, in the Buddhist religion, you'll have a temple. Mosque, in the Islam religion, you'll have a mosque. There's more. I'm just doing the basics. Church, Christians have churches. I know there's more. I'm just doing the basics. And the synagogue. So the Jewish have synagogues. Anyway, quick introduction to religion. Why am I talking about religion? Because I'm talking about buildings, historical buildings. Bridges. Could a bridge be a historical building? It's a building. A bridge is a building. It has been built, right? Why not? You could talk about that, a bridge. I've written down heritage sites because if you're familiar with UNESCO heritage sites, UNESCO go around the world finding these beautiful old buildings and make sure we preserve them, that we don't just knock them down and make a new motorway. So UNESCO heritage sites. Heritage is a nice word. That will impress your examiner. A heritage site. I'd like to tell you about a heritage site that we have in Liverpool. Did you know this? I went to the UNESCO website and thought, which heritage sites do we have in England? Because I had no idea. Liverpool is one of the few heritage sites because of the docks. Liverpool docks have been renovated. Remember back in the Industrial Revolution? If you paid attention in history class and you were studying British history by some strange coincidence, the Industrial Revolution, Liverpool, it was the centre. So we now have, I'm not from Liverpool, but I'm close. I'm a neighbour, Manchester. There is now in Liverpool a heritage site. So there you go. You could talk about that as a historical building. Remember, you can talk about those three things I've mentioned. The appearance or design. Is it brick? Was it a concrete building or wooden? The features it has. Does it have, obviously, windows? Arches. If you're talking about temples, they have the arches. Not the McDonald arches, but, arches. High ceilings, low ceilings. Talk about what you can do there. So the temple, it's a great place to play, to pray. Don't confuse that. It's a great place to pray. The museum, it's a great place to look at art from around the world. So historical buildings, I think that's a really good one. Let me tell you about one historical building that we have slap bang in the middle of our city centre, where I live in Manchester. It's the Manchester Museum, and it dates back to about the 1500s. It's a really old building. It's a very well kept building. It's not a heritage site, but the government has looked after it really well. It's yellow, and as you walk inside, you can see, well, I was going to say a myriad of colours. I'm not talking about colours. I'm talking about historical buildings. As you walk inside, it opens up. You've got these high ceilings, and it's a beautiful place for the art because there's so much space and these gorgeous stained windows. They're kind of semi-transparent, let in the light, and it just gives a real nice artistic ambience and atmosphere in this wonderful historical building, which is the museum in the centre of Manchester. So don't do that in your exam where you confuse the historical building with a colourful place. I've done so many task cards, I start to get them mixed up. Sorry about that. That will not happen again. Okay, so we've looked at places, quite a few. I think it's time to move on to things. And so now let's talk about things. Of course, with things, you probably want to talk about the appearance, what they look like, right? There's many ways we can describe things. A nice trick is when you're talking about the colour, instead of saying it's red, say it's reddish. Reddish. The ish just means it's a kind of shade of red, not clear red. This is very natural, very colloquial English. So I've got this bluish jacket, right? Or this purplish jumper. You put the ish at the end, it sounds great. It's greenish, it's reddish, especially when you're describing something, because often it's difficult to express it clearly. And that's what the ish helps you with. So I've got this kind of reddish car. Not quite red, but it's reddish. So shape, it's very easy. You can just say it's square shaped. What's that? Shaped. It's one of those difficult consonant clusters to do in English. Shaped. Try that. Shaped. It's square shaped. It's round shaped. It's circle shaped. It's triangle shaped. Dead easy. Just put the shape and say shaped at the end. You can also talk about, I guess, a lot of things now like computers, mobile phones, technology. There's a lot of words we can use for that kind of stuff, like it's state of the art. State of the art. State of the art just means it's really modern and very modern. State of the art. You string it together like the washing line. State of the art. It's state of the art. Or it's high tech, which is the same thing really. So it's high technology. That's state of the art. State of the art, high tech, cutting edge. Cutting edge. It all means the same, that it's high quality technology, very modern. On the other hand, you could have something that's old-fashioned, which is the opposite, right? So those are a few things you could talk about with appearance for most things. And of course, you're going to be talking about what you use it for or what you did with it. So whether it's something you borrowed, something you bought or found or used, appearance and what you did with it. Those are probably two key things. Let's have a look then at a task card. Describe a school or company uniform you have worn. You should say what it was, how you got it, what it looked like, and explain how you felt about it. Actually, when I went to school, we had to wear a school uniform. And let me tell you about it, right? We had a jacket. It was a bluish kind of jacket. We had long trousers, black. They had to be black, and black shoes. The jacket had a kind of emblem on it, and it had the school symbol that was plastered here on the jacket. As boys, we also had to wear a matching tie. So I would have a tie, it was striped. In fact, all of the ties were striped. We had 4 houses or 4 groups in our school, and depending on the group you were in, you had a different colour tie. It's a bit like Harry Potter, right? They had the houses. So I was in a house called Lee's, so we had a green striped tie. That was the school uniform. It was, I guess, kind of old-fashioned, but it was neat and tidy. And what we had to do, I mean, let me tell you how I got it, right? At the start of every year, all the children had to go to the shopping mall that was teeming full of people because it was the start of the year, and we would be all cramped inside the shops buying the uniform to get for the start of year. Because, of course, every year as you get taller and bigger and chubbier, you have to buy a new uniform. And I felt quite okay about my uniform. I mean, it's got good and it's got bad. The pros were that you didn't have to think about what you were wearing every day. The downside was there was no individualism. Everyone looked the same, so there was no personality. You couldn't have anything different about the way that you looked. But overall, I was quite happy to wear a school uniform. And that is all I'm going to say about school uniforms. Let's move on. Right, this is a tough one. Describe something you bought that was difficult to use at first. You should say what it was, where you bought it, why it was difficult to use, and explain how you felt about it. Right, well, there's all sorts of things here. Things that are difficult to use. Okay, I guess one of the most common ones, is things like a computer or a mobile phone, right? Because when you buy a computer, you don't really know how it all works. You don't know how it functions. You don't know all the features. So you have to do a bit of learning to know how to use it properly. So that could be something you talk about. What's more, mobile phones, right? Mobile phone. I remember buying my dad a mobile phone for the first time. And I could talk about me. But with mobile phones, sometimes it's quite tricky to hit the right button, right? When you're trying to text or type, it's a bit fiddly, which means it's so small, it's quite fiddly to do it, and it's a bit of a challenge to do it. So those words are quite good, aren't they? It's tricky, means it's difficult. Fiddly means it's small and difficult to handle. So lots of things are fiddly if they're too small, like putting a thread through the eye of a needle. That's very fiddly. Typing a text sometimes is a bit fiddly, and it can be challenging as well. So these are all great words you could be using. Now, I think lots of people will talk about phones and computers. You could talk about, if you have one, a car or an electric bike. First time I bought an electric bike, it was quite difficult to use because you're not used to revving and to accelerating and to moving the accelerator, and suddenly, boom, you fly off into the future, into the distance. So electric bikes, maybe, or gadgets. Have you ever bought a kitchen gadget that you think that looks really useful, and then you get home, you open it, and you just can't work out how to use it? Like the blender or the mixer or the peeler, or there's all sorts of gadgets. And that's a nice word, because any kind of tool, just call it a gadget. All sorts of kitchen gadgets look great, but they're difficult to use at first, and then you can get used to it or throw it in the bin if it's rubbish. Sometimes happens. So other language there, I can see you're probably going to say, well, I bought this gadget, and you see, because I'm used to doing that, and now I had to learn something different. So I am used to doing that. That was my habit. Now I had to learn something different. But now I have got used to it. I've got used to it. means I've adapted, I can use it, I've got used to it. So some nice sentences you could use there. And if in the end now it's really easy, it's a piece of cake. So I bought this peeler. I'm not used to it. I'm used to using another tool, gadget. And then with this new one, I had to learn the technique. It's a bit fiddly for peeling potatoes. But now I've got used to it, and it's a piece of cake to use. There, you see, you can build up some nice language for difficult things. Let's move on. Describe an important text message you received. You should say what it was, when you got it, who you got it from, and explain what you did after reading it. An important text message. Now, this one is also quite tricky, right? An important text message. So one way of thinking about this is don't think about the text, think about the event. Why would you get an important text message? So think about the event, important events in people's lives. Somebody's getting married, right? They text you, say, I'm getting married. Oh, that's an important message, especially if it's an invitation and you're invited. In fact, you're the best man. Ooh. That event gives you an important text message. Now just take it a step further. Newborn baby. I've got a newborn baby. That's an important message because it's important. Why? Because either you will go to the event or it's going to change the lives of your friends or your family. So there's weddings, there's newborn babies, somebody's passed a test or an exam, they've bought a new car, there's a birthday party, invitation. Great. All of those can be quite nice, important messages. So think of the event. And then, of course, you've got your boss who sends you a message saying you need to work late because we've got a deadline tomorrow. That's an important message because you were going to do something better, but now you have to work late. So another kind of important message, not such a nice one. So think about the event. Talk then about what's the thing. The thing is the message. So you're not going to describe the message, or are you? You could talk about emojis, about the length of the message. It was a short message, a long message, possibly, but probably you're going to talk about more about the event, why it was important, and of course who you got it from and things like that. Let's move on. Describe an article you read about healthy living. You should say what it was about, when you read it, where you read it, and explain what you learnt from it. Now, healthy living, this is interesting, right? I, several years ago, started a blog about healthy living, about healthy eating, actually. Check it out. Seriously Fun Food. It's my little blog about healthy eating. So when it comes to describing an article, about healthy eating, your focus is on, well, what's it about? Okay, there are a handful, literally a handful of healthy living. It's healthy living, right? Healthy living aspects. And here are the main ones. Losing weight. So everything about diets, fad diets, low carb diets. You can talk about the paleo diet, about low-fat diets, Atkins diet. Losing weight is one. Exercise is the other. Because we live such a sedentary lifestyle, that's a good phrase, sedentary lifestyle. You're sat at your desk in front of your computer, and we don't do enough exercise. So we need to be moving more, whether it's walking, stretching your legs, or going down the gym, doing some aerobics, whatever it is, exercise. That's another one. Sleep is the other big healthy living thing. We don't get enough sleep. There's a lot of controversy about how many hours we really need, but it's fairly clear from the research that sleep impacts our mood, our hormones, and the way that we can work and be productive in different days. Some people suffer from insomnia, where they can't sleep properly and they don't sleep for days. Insomnia can have a big impact on your work, relationships, lots of things. Sleep. The other one is related, is handling stress. So lots of articles about handling stress. So the impacts of stress, how we're all stressed out. That's nice, stressed out. We are living in a high pressure society. We're all stressed out, and so there's a lot of articles about handling stress. That's how you manage it. And how do you handle stress? How do you handle stress? Some people do yoga, some people do exercise, some people socialize, some people drink. Maybe they have a little drink. Some people meditate. So all sorts of things there. Those are some ideas. You want to be talking about the article, about this idea of what it is, when you read it, where you read it, sure. Remember, you don't have to say all of that. But it would be good to say what you learned from it. You know, maybe you read A, you learned B, and now I have changed this. You can throw in a nice present perfect. I have changed my lifestyle. After reading that article, I have changed the way I eat. I've decided to do more exercise. I've taken up yoga. Begin. I've taken up yoga. Or I haven't changed anything, which is actually what normally happens. You read the article, you go, that's really interesting, and then you do nothing. That's the world we live in. Next one. Describe a successful small company. You should say what this company is, how you know about it, what it produces. And explain why you think this company is successful. Okay, a successful small company. So we're not talking about your Facebooks. And no, I wouldn't even talk about when Mark Zuckerberg was in his dorm and it was a small company. That was a long time ago. So it's not your Facebooks or your Amazons or Googles or Baidu or Lenovo or Samsung. It's not those. It's a small company. So what are we looking at? Well, think about it. Your typical small companies are the shops, the corner shop, right? The mum and pop. We call it a mum and pop shop, mum and pop store, right? Where typically a couple, a mum and a dad, or a couple have started a shop. It could be a cake shop, a sweet shop, a furniture shop, but these little shops are usually small businesses, as opposed to chain stores that are huge around the country. Restaurants. A lot of restaurants, not the chain stores, but the smaller restaurants where there's just one and it's owned by one person or a couple or a family. So often family-run businesses, right? That was a question a while ago. So maybe your brother or uncle or father has a business. It's probably going to be small or medium size. So you can talk about that. SME. Small or medium-sized enterprises, so SMEs. So my uncle has an SME. Started off very small, but it's got bigger. But keep the focus on the successful small company, on small and successful. Okay, let's talk about successful. Why is a small company successful? I would say there's several things that they do. One is that they did their market research. So they knew what the gap in the market was. The gap in the market is the opportunity. They understood the customer and they did market research. They then provided a product that the customer wanted, high quality product. So having good quality products makes them successful. Well, can make them successful. Also, they may have excellent customer service, especially restaurants and, well, the service industry. You must have good customer service. So cracking customer service, that's nice. Cracking means excellent. Cracking customer service. They've done the market research. They have a high quality product, and maybe they've invested in some marketing, and that's so that they've got the word out. They've spread the word so people know about them, and they've become a successful small company. All of these things can add up to success, and these are things you can talk about. Let me move on then, actually move on to activity. But I fear that this may be the end of this video because it's getting so long. It's going to become a Star Wars epic. So I think I'll split it into two. We'll do this one that covers then places, people and things. And in the next video over there, we'll look at activities and events. And that will come very, very soon. Okay, just to remind you, if you want lots more model answers, I've got my main flagship course on Udemy. It's IELTS Speaking Success. Get a Band 7+. Go and check it out if you want more and more. Otherwise, if you're not quite ready, wait for the next video. It's just one video, but we'll be looking at activities and also events for part 2. Great. Can't wait to see you. If you've liked this, please do subscribe. Follow the links below. Share it with your friends. Tell the world. And also practice, get better, helping you with your IELTS speaking. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.